The laugh lands first. The anchor detail is the conference room table. Polished wood, early 1990s Los Angeles, a label executive leaning back in a chair as Prince slides a sheet of paper across. On it is the glyph, neither word nor logo, a hybrid symbol meant to replace his name. The exec chuckles, reportedly says something like, "You can't be serious," and the room follows with a thin, dismissive smile. Prince doesn't laugh back. He watches the reaction, measuring it, as if noting the exact moment respect turns into leverage. Freeze the frame there. The anchor detail is the paper with the symbol still between them, untouched by the executive's hands. This isn't about branding yet, it's about control. Names are currency in this industry, and Prince is signaling he's willing to walk away from his own. The exec's laugh makes the stakes clear. If the label controls the name, it controls the man attached to it. Days earlier, the rules were already set. The anchor detail is the recording contract, thick, tabbed, sitting in Prince's Paisley Park office. According to accounts, it locks him into a release schedule and ownership structure that benefits the label more than the artist. Prince has delivered hit after hit under the name Prince, and that name is now a line item, a trademark the company effectively owns for commercial use. Creative freedom ends where paperwork begins. Prince starts testing the boundaries. The anchor detail is a rehearsal room at Paisley Park, white walls, purple lights, band waiting as he introduces himself not with a name, but with a symbol drawn on a chalkboard. It's awkward at first. Musicians glance at each other. How do you say it? Prince doesn't explain. The discomfort is the point. If the name is the cage, removing it is the first bend in the bars. Back at the label, confusion spreads. The anchor detail is a memo circulated internally asking how to market an artist formerly known as Prince. According to insiders, executives argue it's a stunt, something that will burn out after a press cycle. The laughter from that first meeting echoes in boardrooms. They assume the symbol will fold under commercial pressure. They assume wrong. Prince escalates quietly. The anchor detail is album artwork credited not to Prince, but to the symbol itself. Retailers don't know where to file it. Radio DJs stumble on air. Every mispronunciation becomes proof of the problem he's exposing. If the label owns the name, then starving the name starves the machine that profits from it. The tension sharpens at another meeting. The anchor detail is the same conference room, the same table, but now the symbol is projected on a screen behind Prince. He explains, calmly, reportedly, that as long as the contract stands, Prince is not his to use freely. The execs push back, pointing to market confusion, lost revenue, brand dilution. One of them laughs again, lighted this time as if to soften the dismissal. Prince's expression doesn't change. Outside the room, the costs begin to tally. The anchor detail is a sales report showing slowed distribution, delayed promotion, confusion at retail. Millions are at stake, and everyone knows it. The label frames the symbol as the cause. Prince frames it as the symptom. The disagreement isn't about art versus commerce anymore. It's about who gets to define identity. Prince makes it visual. The anchor detail is his face, appearing publicly with the word slave written on his cheek. It's a documented image, photographed, circulated, impossible to ignore. He's tying the laughter in that boardroom to a longer history of artists bound by contracts they didn't truly control. The label recoils, issuing statements that distance themselves from the message while still enforcing the deal. The press feeds on it. The anchor detail is a magazine cover referring to him as the artist formerly known as Prince. The phrase sticks because it solves a practical problem for writers while reinforcing his point. The name is trapped in quotation marks, owned by someone else. Prince accepts the awkwardness. He leans into it. Every workaround costs money, attention, clarity. Privately, the label calculates. The anchor detail is another meeting, numbers projected, marketing budget slashed because they can't fully exploit the Prince brand while he refuses to answer to it. According to accounts, this is where the phrase "cost millions" stops being metaphor. Tours, albums, merchandise, everything attached to the old name becomes complicated, delayed, diminished. Prince doesn't flinch. The anchor detail is the symbol again, now painted on instruments, stitched into clothing, burned into stage backdrops. He's making it expensive to ignore. The exec's laugh from that first meeting has turned into a liability. What was meant to be mockery has triggered a standoff neither side can easily exit. The cliff edge arrives quietly. The anchor detail is a final exchange, a warning from the label that continuing down this path will hurt everyone involved. Prince listens, nods, gathers his papers, including the original sheet with the symbol, and stands up. He doesn't argue, he doesn't threaten, he simply leaves the room, the sound of the door closing punctuating the realization that the next move will redraw the balance sheet.
The next move doesn't arrive as a press conference, it arrives as absence. The anchor detail is a release calendar with Prince's name missing, blank spaces where guaranteed revenue once sat. According to insiders, the label expected a quick retreat once the numbers dipped. Instead, Prince doubles down on the symbol, removing the name from everything he can control. The silence around Prince becomes as loud as the laughter once was. At rehearsal, the band adapts. The anchor detail is a whiteboard listing set cues marked only with the glyph. Musicians learn to point instead of say. It slows things down, and that friction is intentional. Prince is forcing every collaborator to confront the same question the label laughed off. If the name is owned, who is the artist without it? The label escalates with pressure. The anchor detail is a phone call from an executive reminding Prince of contractual obligations tied specifically to the name Prince. According to accounts, the implication is clear: comply or risk breach. Prince listens, then returns to rehearsal without comment. The next night, he performs under the symbol again. The crowd still comes. Media confusion peaks. The anchor detail is a television chyron struggling to label him during a live appearance, producers settling on awkward phrasing mid-broadcast. Advertisers complain. According to industry watchers, each moment of hesitation costs money, seconds of airtime, clarity, confidence. The system depends on smooth naming. Prince has turned naming into sand. The financial impact sharpens. The anchor detail is a marketing budget slashed in half because campaigns can't cleanly reference the artist formerly marketed as Prince. Retailers hesitate. Radio stations argue about catalog placement. None of this touches Prince's creativity directly, but it bleeds the machine that once profited effortlessly from his name. Prince reframes the fight publicly. The anchor detail is an interview where he points, not to the symbol, but to the contract. He reportedly explains that the name Prince is bound to terms he no longer accepts. The symbol isn't rebellion for style, it's a workaround. If the label owns the word, he will operate outside language. Internally, the label splits. The anchor detail is a boardroom divided between those who want to wait him out and those who see the damage compounding. Millions are now measurable losses, not projections. The laughter from that first meeting is recalled with regret. Mockery aged poorly once it started costing real money. Prince's output continues, but differently. The anchor detail is a new release credited solely to the symbol, distributed through unconventional channels. It sells less in traditional metrics, but it sells enough to prove survival without full corporate backing. The message lands. He doesn't need permission to exist creatively. Fans adapt faster than executives. The anchor detail is homemade signs at concerts featuring hand-drawn glyphs. They chant without words, mimicking the shape with their hands. What began as confusion becomes community. The label can't monetize that easily, and that's the point. The breaking moment comes quietly. The anchor detail is a negotiation table months later, contracts revisited, language softened. According to insiders, the label acknowledges the stalemate is unsustainable. The symbol didn't disappear, the revenue did. Compromise becomes cheaper than control. Prince regains his name eventually, but the cost is already paid. The anchor detail is the return of Prince on an album cover, framed not as victory, but as choice. He proved the name only mattered because he let it. The laughter that dismissed the symbol is now a footnote in a much larger recalculation. The thesis stands exposed. Ownership of art begins with ownership of identity. When that identity is treated like a joke, the artist can weaponize the system's dependence on it. Prince didn't just change his name, he forced an industry to price the consequences of disrespect.
Years later, the story condenses into shorthand, but the anchor detail never changes. That laugh in the room, the symbol on the paper, the millions that followed. In hindsight, the cost wasn't just financial, it was structural. The industry learned, slowly, that contracts could bind output but not meaning. The aftermath begins with imitation. The anchor detail is younger artists citing Prince when negotiating ownership clauses, pointing to the symbol era as proof of leverage. Executives listen differently now, not because they've grown generous, but because they've seen how expensive dismissal can be. Prince rarely revisits the moment publicly. The anchor detail is his refusal to dramatize it in memoirs or speeches. According to people close to him, that restraint was intentional. The fight wasn't personal, it was architectural. He redesigned the building and walked away without explaining the blueprint. The label absorbs the loss quietly. The anchor detail is revised training for A&R and legal teams, emphasizing artist relations and brand respect. No one mentions the executive who laughed. Lessons are institutionalized without naming their origin, a way of saving face while changing behavior. Culturally, the symbol becomes myth. The anchor detail is how people remember it as chaos when it was actually methodical. Prince didn't burn the house down, he turned off the lights and waited for everyone to notice how much they depended on him to see. Financially, the millions lost fade into annual reports, but the shift remains. The anchor detail is the new balance in negotiations, where artists ask harder questions about ownership earlier. The industry still resists, but it resists with memory now. Prince's legacy absorbs the episode seamlessly. The anchor detail is the symbol displayed in museums, treated not as gimmick, but as artifact. It represents a moment when identity became strategy. What once drew laughter now draws analysis. The final consequence is subtle but permanent. The anchor detail is the understanding that names are not just labels, they're levers. When a label executive laughed at Prince's symbol, they underestimated how much weight that lever carried. Prince pulled it anyway. He didn't shout, he didn't sue first, he didn't beg. He changed the terms of recognition and let the cost surface on its own. Millions vanished, yes, but something more valuable shifted hands: control.